What's up, guys? Sean, the Razor here, staying sharp. I just woke up, by the way. This is going to be the second part of my reversing video. If you guys haven't seen my first video, I'm going to put the link right here. Right there. Someone? Can you get that? Ah, there we go. So I'm going to put the link right there for you guys. You can click on it. Basically, that's going to go over the first part. I talked about what dieting is, what reverse dieting is, what happens, how our body adapts to that, these processes, and why you want to do that. So check that video out. This video is going to talk about my reverse, the things I've been doing, and I'm going to go over some of your questions as well. Alright, guys. As far as my reverse is going, it's going pretty well. The day of the contest, which was July 13th, I didn't really track my intake. I had a pretty good idea of what I took in. A lot of carbohydrates, kept my fat fairly low, or moderate, or 500 grams of carbohydrates during the day, a lot of sodium, plenty of water. Anyways, on stage I looked, great. Full, dry, hard, pretty much all the adjectives that you like to hear when you're a bodybuilder. So I really think that I brought my best package at that last show. That was my plan. I wanted to get better each show, and I really feel like I did. So super happy with my season. Like closing out my season, after 4 shows, I couldn't be happier, couldn't be more proud of myself and just the whole process. And I have no regrets. I feel like I had a very successful season. So now I have a new benchmark. I know what I want to do now, the improvements I want to make, which I'll talk in a later video about that. That night, we all went to BJ's. I had pizza. I had some Pizookies, which is basically like a soft cookie with ice cream on top. And both of those were just amazing. So I ate that, no regrets. Not a macro was counted, felt good. The next morning I actually left the remaining part of the pizza in the hotel room there. Maybe the maid, came up to clean the room. Maybe she had a couple slices. She might be bulking. Then at the airport, I had protein bars with me. I had Pringles, Pop-Tarts, and jerky. And I bought a Diet Coke and pretty much ate what I wanted, but I didn't get too crazy. I didn't buy any food at the airport, but I did eat what I had. Monday, I didn't count my macros, but I didn't get crazy. Tuesday on, up until now, I've been counting everything. So, I initially bumped up to about almost 150. My morning weight of the show was probably 142, 143, in that range. I didn't have a scale, so not sure. Initially went up to about 150. I leveled out to about 143 point something. So fat gain, probably a couple pounds. Still looking very sharp though. I will put a picture up to show you right now. This was taken yesterday. As you can see, still very sharp. Probably put on a little bit of fat in my glutes, which is fine because having no fat on your glutes is not fun at all. So I couldn't wait to put some fat on my glutes. Because just sitting down for any period of time, no matter how cushiony a chair is, you feel it. Part of the reason why I'm 145 today is because yesterday I did go over what I wanted to eat. It wasn't a binge or anything like that. It wasn't crazy, and I still tracked everything. Usually when I go over my numbers, if I go over my numbers, it's more carbohydrates, so it's almost like a refeed. Pretty much due for another refeed anyways. I did 53 fats, 526 carbohydrates, and 215 protein. 76 grams of fiber. So, a little high, but not a big deal. Before the show, I was doing about four sessions of cardio a week, maybe 5. And I'd split that up into HIIT sessions and steady state cardio. I would do 4 to 6 intervals, nice and easy, quick. Not easy, but quick. 15 and 20 seconds all out on my bike outside. And rest period about 2 minutes. And I'd probably do that about 3 times a week. And then once or twice a week, I would just have, a casual 45 minutes to an hour long light intensity session. Heart rate probably in the low 100s. 100 to 110 is probably about where my heart rate was. So pretty sedentary. So, I don't burn a whole lot of calories unless I go to the gym and do cardio or weightlifting. So since the show, I have started tapering my cardio. Basically, right after the show, I brought that back about 75%. I actually started peaking for this last show about 2.5 weeks out. I actually started peaking for this last show about 2.5 weeks out. One thing I noticed on my first 2 shows is, that I came in kind of flat. With that show, my carbohydrates came down to about 150, and I even dipped down to 125 for about 3 days, but anything below 200 for me is really low. So for these last 2 shows, about 2.5 weeks out, I brought my carbohydrates up into the 200 to 250 range. That's a lot better for my body. I stay a lot fuller, and it didn't make me gain any weight. I came in a lot fuller, still very conditioned, and I had better results with that. So it's probably something I'll think about doing in the future. Having a peak week, I think, is kind of misleading, because a lot of people hear peak week and they think it's some kind of magical thing, and it's not. So I think my peak week is actually going to be a peak 2.5 weeks, because my body seems to respond better with a longer peak week. So Jeff Fleming asks, how did you come up with your baseline macros? This is going to be different for everyone. I think it really depends on what you dieted on and what your macros were before the show. At my lowest, I was probably doing 30 to 35 grams of fat, carbohydrates, 150 to 200, and protein 200 to 225, maybe even up to 240. And after the show, that initial bump, looking at 40 grams of fat, carbohydrates, I brought those up to 250. I've actually been doing 250 to 300. Protein, 200 to 225. So what I would recommend is whatever your high carb day was during contest prep, 80 to 85%. So if your refeed was 300, maybe 220 to 240 every day. So if it's 350, then it's going to be a little bit higher. If it's 400, you may get away with 320 a day. So, I think it really just depends on the person. Some people can't tolerate that many carbohydrates right after the show. Some people's bodies adapt very quickly to increases. So it really just depends. But that's what I did. And then basically every week we're going to be probably adding a little bit here and there and just seeing how my body responds. So, if weight gain's going up too much, I'll taper it back a little bit. If I'm kind of stagnant, then I'm going to give it a bigger increase. Much like my prep, it's going to be instinctual, and we're just going to go, step by step. Eric asks, how many calories is it okay to add after the first initial bump? And I think I pretty much covered that. I think you should really kind of base it off of what you've been doing, and I think a percentage of your refeed would be a good start, and then you can make adjustments based on if you're gaining too fast, gaining too slow, and really just kind of listen to your body, because that's going to tell you more than anything. I could come up with formulas all day long, and it's not going to fit everyone. So really just got to listen to your body and go from there. Okay, next question is, what body fat percentage will you reverse until? I don't know. My plans are to basically increase my metabolic rate as fast as possible. So as you're going up, you're going to hit a point to where you're basically getting diminishing returns after a certain point. Where that is, I have no idea, but I imagine it's for me, it's probably going to be between 15 and 20%, maybe even as low as 12 to 15%. I don't know. The goal is to eat as much food while gaining the least amount of fat as possible. So basically just really becoming less efficient and inefficient. That way when I flip the switch again and I go to do a mini cut, the fat just kind of melts off, and then I can kind of reset things and kind of go to that next tier. Body fat percentage, no idea. Probably gonna be 15 to 20% range. We'll see how fluffy I get, how I'm feeling, how how much body fat I'm gaining. So depends on all those variables. And Ross Chapman asks, have you noticed regaining fat while the scale is remaining relatively constant? Yes and no. I think a lot of that depends on our perception of things, and I'm going to make another video coming up here on the psychological aspects of gaining weight and losing weight. I think that's a very relative topic that's not discussed very often. Just the act of gaining weight, losing weight, etc., the thoughts and processes behind that in the brain are, going on, and like I said, not a lot of people talk about it, but it can really mess with your mind. So I think that sometimes, especially after an extended fat loss period, we put on any amount of fat, even if it's a small amount of fat, in our mind, that small amount of fat is actually much larger than it really is. So I think sometimes what the scale says and what we think is happening, there can be some kind of disconnect there. So that I'm regaining fat while the scale is relatively constant, yes and no. And is part of that my perception being skewed? Probably. I remember when I was very high body fat percentage, I thought I was a lot lower than I was. Now that I'm a lot lower than most people, sometimes I feel like I'm higher. So, you know, our perception of things can be pretty skewed, I think. Okay, guys, I think that's pretty much going to cut it for today. I'm going to have to edit this and, you know, put that video together and then upload it. And I've got more questions, so there is going to be a part 3. This is just part 2. Hopefully I covered what I wanted to cover. Sometimes I think of all these grand things to say and I don't necessarily think I really convey it on video as well as I do in my head, so bear with me. It's only going to get better, but hopefully I'm putting some good information out there for you guys. Hopefully I'm provoking, you know, thought-inducing conversations here. So if you guys have any more questions, feel free to comment below. Like it if you like this video, and then subscribe if you like this as well. But we're gonna put out another video. We're gonna get to more of your questions, and we're gonna go from there. So stay sharp, my friends. Peace.